Okay, so now I'm ready to go onto my red strand. We're basically just going to repeat the process. In many cases, it's going to be very, very similar to what we just did. In fact, we're going to use what we just did as kind of our model for the next strand. So again, cut my strand to a bit of a taper. Get the needle screwed on. You want to get it on there nice and tight. Again, we condition the strand. And then we're ready to go. So we start at the same spot that we started our original one. If you remember, when we finished the knot, we went underneath our starting strand. We want to do the same thing. We essentially just want to replicate what we just did. So we go under that strand that we started with, pull this strand through. You want to try and pull it through as straight as you can, of course. And these are all fairly easy things to fix as you go along. Pull it through to the beginning, to the end of your strand. Tighten that back up, and there you go. Now you can see we've got a strand that runs parallel to our black strand, which is exactly what we want. So now what we do is we follow the strand that we just did. And we are essentially going to follow this strand very closely in terms of what we just did. So that strand went under, so this strand will go under. As you can see, we're running nicely parallel. So it went under that strand, we went under this strand. It goes over, we go over. Now, of course, what's going to happen is this will become a little bit easier as you go along, because the excess strand that you have left, of course, goes down as you start to use it up. So pull this nice and tight, and you can see we've got a nice parallel line. So here's where it starts to get a little bit different. It's not really complicated, but it can be confusing when you're looking at a number of these strands right here. So what you can see is we've got this strand that we're following, and it passes under this strand. As you're looking at this holding the handle, we're running to the left of this strand. As we get around to the other side and we flip it over, we actually want to be running on the right-hand side of that strand. How we do that is by taking our red strand, passing it under the strand we were following, and you can see it comes out on the other side. So what we want to do is pass it under that strand, and it essentially is going under two strands. You want to split this little X shape and come out on the other side. So we pull our needle through, and you just want to make sure that as you're doing this, your strand runs through fairly straight. Of course, dealing with these falls becomes a little bit more complicated. We got to get these out of the way a little bit. It's either you're dealing with the falls getting in the way or the wrist strap getting in the way when it comes to floggers. So we pull our strand through. That's just extra conditioner. Pull our strand through. Now here what we want to do is we want to use our fid. And you see how the red is kind of overlapping the black? We actually want it the other way around. So all you do is take your fid and overlap that black over the red. And then use your fid on this side to straighten out this strand. It just got curled up a little bit underneath because of the tension of the knot. So just straighten that out. And there you go. Now we're ready to follow along on the next strand. So following the same strand, we pulled it under. You can see we've got to go over this strand because this strand goes over it as well. So we go over this strand. Straighten everything out. Pull it through. Get it nice and even, nice and tight. So then we go over the next strand and under the following strand. There you go. Make sure it's nice and straight, even with your other strand. Now again, we've come up to this point where we have to go underneath the strand we're following and come out on the other side. So what we're going to do is go under the strand we were following. If you follow it along, it comes out underneath on the other side of the same strand. So this strand is this strand, and you can see where the needle's coming out. That's where we want that strand to follow. So we're still following the same strand. We're basically just skipping underneath that strand every time we get to one of the top or the bottom. So pull it through again, and again, use your fid. You see how it's got this little overlap here? Just take it, get your black to cover it, and there you go. So now we're through nice and straight. And then this strand, you can see, goes over this strand, so it's got to go under this strand. Make sure it's nice and even. So following along, we go over and under. Now, as you can see, we're back up at the top again, which means we have to go under that strand and follow it around, as I said, on the other side. So, at the end of our strand with our needle, go underneath this strand, through the middle, and pull it through. Trying to keep everything out of the way so you can see it. And again, we use our fid. Get that covered. And then we follow it on the other side. So we go over a strand, under the following strand, avoiding our falls if we can, pull it tight, over the next strand. Now we're going to start to see that we're coming into the areas where we've already caught up to where we started with the red. So now, again, if we're just following this strand along, we see it passes under two strands, so our red has to pass under the same two strands. So we pass under the two strands, pull it through flat. Now what's happened is that these were our starting strands. We just loosened them up a little, so just pull them tight again, and you can do that anytime. So we're back down to the bottom. We've got one strand to go under. So we go under that strand, and again, come out on the other side of the same strand. Make sure our strand is set up nice and straight. Pull it through. Again, here we are with the fid. And get that nice and flat, nice and straightened out. So again, we go over this strand. You can see if we follow it, it's going over. We go under the next strand, over the following strand, and then under two strands, as you can see. So we pull that through. Now we're back at the top. Again, we have to go under that strand and come out on the other side. So under this strand, let me see, get that out of the way, under this strand and out the other side. Again, pull it through. Pull it through nice and straight. Again with the fid. Makes the edges of our knots look a lot nicer. You can see, get that all straightened out. And now we go back down the other side.